The 8th anniversary has started off with a bang, with the end of Boo Saga and the end of GT units, bringing some of the most wanted animations to the game, the Super Spirit Bomb and the Universal Spirit Bomb. Furthermore, they have also introduced a new type of skill to the game in the form of standbys, which have brought in revive counters as well as the charge meter. Of course, not only that, part 1 has also brought out the 2 most wanted EZAs. Well, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but at least one of them was highly wanted, and of course it was Super Boo and Physical Super Vegito, both of which ended up being very interesting in their own rights, one being amazing, the other being somewhat of a disappointment. And you would have never guessed that the Physical Super Vegito was the disappointment. That being said, though, that doesn't stop us from being excited for what Dokkan has to offer in part 2, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. Today, we're going to be taking a look at what Dokkan could bring to us in part 2, the units that might come out, the Dokkan awakenings that we could see, the EZAs that we might see, and much more. So if you guys go on to enjoy this video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more Dokkan and Legends content, and of course leave a comment down below. What are you guys looking forward to the most in part 2 of the Dokkan Battle 8th anniversary? I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say down below. Now, right now on your screens, I have the 8th anniversary campaign open along with the 7th anniversary campaign for part 2. This will allow us to get an idea on exactly what might come in the next part. So I think without further ado, let's start off with the obvious elephant in the room. Right now in part 1, we of course have the banners live with the G2 duo units as well as the Boo Saga duo units. And of course in part 2, we are going to be getting 2 new LRs, right? We know that we're going to be getting 2 new LRs. Last year it was Goku and Vegeta, which was a big disappointment to me personally. I really wanted the Saiyan Saga duo units to be like worldwide download celebration or something along those lines, because the Saiyan Saga deserves to be Red Coin Dokkan Fest exclusive LR levels, but we didn't get that. This year it's a little bit trickier to kind of get a gauge on what might come. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, oh, it's easily going to be Omega Shenron. It's easily going to be Kid Buu, right? And oh, for sure, there's all the plausibility in the world that it could be one of those units. If you look back to the 5th anniversary, the 4th anniversary, you know, in the second half of the celebration or the second part of the anniversary, we would always get villains as the LR. Obviously, last year, we obviously had Goku and Vegeta as the theme, so it ended up being Kaioken Goku and obviously Vegeta. And then in the 6th anniversary, we had the Universal Survival Saga or Reps of Universe 7 being the main theme. So we got Reps of Universe 7's LRs. So we got, you know, Team Universe 7 LR, of course, Android 17 as the LR, and then 17 and Frieza as the other LR. So with this year's theme being Spirit Bomb, as much as I would like to think that we're finally getting that LR Kid Buu that everybody has been begging for, I don't know, to be quite honest, because the fact that the theme entirely for this celebration, this anniversary, is Spirit Bomb, there is a possibility that it could be something else. It could be, for example, the Namek Goku Spirit Bomb. It could be the Saiyan Saga Spirit Bomb, which I highly doubt it's going to be that one, to be quite honest, but it could be like the Turles Spirit Bomb, or it could be the Spirit Bomb from Android 13's movie. It could be anything of that sort. So it's going to be very interesting to see if there is going to be a continuation with the Spirit Bomb theme, or if it's going to be Omega and Kid Buu just straight up, right? I'm leaning more towards Omega and Kid Buu being the LRs more so than anything else. I think it's high time we've gotten them. It's incredible the amount of or the lack of credit that we give to Omega and Kid Buu in Dokkan Battle, considering they were staple villains in Dragon Ball for so long. Omega was the last villain Dragon Ball had until Super. He was the big baddie until the start of Super. So it's insane that we haven't been seeing him getting enough respect in Dokkan Battle. And it's the same thing with Kid Buu, him being the final villain of Dragon Ball Z. And obviously we got STR Kid Buu, but before that we haven't gotten anything, right? We don't even have an LR for him. Is insane, right? So I'm very interested to see what they end up doing, but I am hoping, my personal hope is that we do get Kid Buu and Omega Shenron finally over the other spirit bombs, in my personal opinion. I'm very curious to see what you guys want to see. Maybe you guys want the spirit bomb units more so than I do, and maybe you guys want it more than Omega Shenron or Kid Buu, but I would be highly surprised if you guys are in the majority in that point, to be quite honest. So there is that. Now, of course, there are other things that we can expect in part 2. If we take a look at the 7th anniversary, we scroll back up, we obviously have a co-op campaign. We could see a co-op campaign again for the second part of the anniversary for sure, right? But I think more so than that, we have to look forward to these things, the story events, right? And if we look at Dokkan's part 1 story events right now, we obviously have 3 events live right now, 3 story events, similar to last year. But of course, one of the story events only gives a support memory at this point in time. I'm not sure if we'll get another support memory or an actual unit for this 3rd story, but it's going to be very interesting to say the least. Now, the first story and the second story have units, right? We obviously have the first story, which is the entire Majin Buu saga sort of like era where we're facing off against all the Boos and Majin units basically, right? So you've got your Puipi, Yakon, stuff like that in the first part. And of course, we have Babidi as the free unit there. Now, obviously, Babidi starts off as the SSR and is the TUR. There is a very good chance that Babidi is also the LR, which would mean that Babidi has gotten 3 LRs in comparison to Kid Buu's 0, which is funny to think about, to be quite honest. But that being said, there is a very good chance we could be also seeing a standby skill for this free-to-play LR Babidi, which I hope is good, by the way. I mean, last year's free-to-play LR, the Gohan, Trunks, and Goten were a disappointment. So hopefully with this anniversary, we have an actually better LR, and hopefully that LR can be actually useful. Now, like I said, I expect this Babidi to have a standby skill. Now the question is, what will the standby be? Will it be an exchange? Will it be a revive counter? What will it be? I think it's going to be an exchange. It definitely seems like it's going to be an exchange. It's very possible that this exchange could be into Majin Vegeta. It could be into Fat Buu. It could be into the Majin Army. Who knows? I think it would be cool if it's based on maybe HP thresholds, but then it runs into the issue of, you don't know which one you want, right? If, say, you want Majin Vegeta, but he's only available at higher than 70% HP, and because of the high difficulty contents that are in the game right now, you're never above 70% HP unless you have like a revive unit, for example, the GT Duo unit or something like that. It can be tricky to pull out Majin Vegeta if that's what you want, right? So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do with this LR Babidi. If he ends up being LR Babidi, that is to say, of course, which is very likely. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to say the least. And then, of course, we have the Hercule event, right? Or Goku and his friends event, I should say, which we are getting a free Hercule from, who will Dokkan awaken into a TUR. So it's going to be very interesting to see what we get here. I'm hoping that the Hercule is decent-ish, of course. I mean, the Int Hercule is still a monster, right? We know how good he was in the Cell Max event. Of course, they kind of nerfed him after a point, but he was so good at one point, right? So it's going to be very interesting to see how they design the TUR Hercule actually, and of course, once he gets his EZA, because that will be coming out, of course, not in part 2, if I'm not mistaken. I think that comes out in part 3, so that's something we'll have to wait on. So for now, in part 2, we can expect to see the LR Babidi and the TUR Hercule at the very least. Hopefully, they'll end up being good. Hopefully they'll end up being good. Now, of course, along with that, of course, in the 8th anniversary, we have gotten part 1 EZAs. Now, in the 7th anniversary, we never had a part 1 EZA. All the EZAs came out in part 2 and later. So SJ for Gogeta, Omega Shenron, God Ku, God Vegeta, all of them came out in part 2. Then the 3rd part brought out the 3-year anniversary LR EZAs, and then the EX anniversary part brought out the 4th anniversary LR EZAs. I think that they decided to do a part 1 EZA this time around is because they're not doing an EX part, most likely. At least that's my assumption, right? Is I don't think they're doing an EX part, so that's why we're not gonna get that, how the 4th anniversary LRs were in the EX part. That's not gonna happen. I think we'll get an EZA in part 1, we'll get 2 EZAs in part 2, so 2 different set of units in part 2. So maybe, like, for example, we'll come on to the examples in a moment, but let's say, for example, the 5th anniversary LRs and worldwide download celebration LRs in part 2, and then part 3 can be another set of 2 units, basically, right? That's how I expect it to be. So of course, we've gotten physical Super Vegeta and Super Buu so far. Now, for part 2, it's going to be very interesting to see what we actually get. Now, my personal prediction is that we will be getting the worldwide download celebration LRs to EZA, and along with them, I think it is time for potentially units like LR Baby and Int SSJ for Gogeta to EZA potentially. I think that's the only option for the GT side, and this is me trying to kind of spread it evenly out, because this is if Omega Shenron and of course Kid Buu are actually happening, they kind of have to address both parts of the celebration, the GT side and the Buu Saga side. And considering GT doesn't actually have that many units left to EZA outside of, you know, banner units and stuff like that, right? Sub EZAs are also possible. I think it's best for them to do LR Baby and SSJ for Gogeta together. And then, of course, on the other side, you have the worldwide download celebration LRs to EZA. And then, of course, you know, the 5th anniversary LRs, I think they're going to be in part 3 potentially, but they are also very likely candidates. I do believe that the EZAs for the 5th anniversary LRs is very, very possible as well. I know a lot of people are saying like, oh, they'll do a Vegeta Blue, that's when they'll EZA the 5th anniversary LRs, but that's too far away, I think. I think that's too far away. And especially because they're probably, well, outside of Go Bros, I guess, Go Bros, the Blue Bros, and then of course, you know, Tech Gogeta, Tech Super Gogeta, and the 5th anniversary LRs. These 4 DFE LRs are really, really old, and they are approaching their time for an EZA ASAP. I mean, Go Bros should have gotten an EZA like yesteryear. I mean, technically Go Bros is also possible. I think Go Bros are on the Power of Wish category because of the Dragon Balls and stuff, right? So they could also be a shout, you know, a possible shout for an EZA. It's just weird to have them as a single EZA though. So we'll have to wait and see on that front. We'll have to wait and see on that front for sure. But that's very possible as well. I do think that's going to be possible. We also will probably be getting the additional challenge events for the Shenron, the other evil Shenrons, right? If we look at the events right now, we have Haze, Rage, and Oceanus. So we should be getting potentially, I think, Naturon, Eyes, and Nova. And then Sin and Omega will be in part 3 is my expectation. I think Sin and Omega will be the last 2 stages for the last part of the celebration, I think. That would make sense. So 3, 3, and then 2 for the final one. It will be very interesting to see how they design Naturon, Eyes, and Nova. It's going to be hopefully challenging for players, and maybe they might be the long events that the Buu Saga units need, because right now the GT Duo units are better, let's be real, with the damage reduction and everything, and especially because of how short the events are, the 9 to 10 turns at most, you know, we have in a difficult content. I think it's if Sin, Omega, these units or these bosses end up being 15-20 turns, the Buu Saga units might actually end up being much better in those fights, you know. So we'll have to just wait and see. Outside of that, I don't think we obviously had anything. There is a possibility we could get new missions. I'm just seeing this, right? Fighting Legend Goku GT Edition, Fighting Legend Vegeta got new missions. There is a possibility that we could get new missions for some of these other red zone stages, like for example, the Wicked Bloodline stages or Android stages might get some sort of like potential additional missions. Maybe even the OG Fighting Legend Goku GT and Vegeta again get more missions. But I think for now I'm leaning towards more so some of the other red zones getting new missions more so than the Fighting Legend events. I think that's going to be very likely. It's something that would be cool. I know it's outdated a little bit, of course, the God event. I mean, I wouldn't mind the God event also getting some new missions, to be quite honest. That would not be a miss, you know. We never go back to the God event, so giving the God event a couple of new missions as well would not be a bad idea, to be quite honest. So we'll see on that front. But yeah, I think for that, for the 8th anniversary part 2, I think that's all I can think of, to be quite honest. Let me know if I missed out on anything. Do you guys think there's anything else to come? We've covered the EZAs, we've covered the new potential missions, we've of course covered the new LRs to come, of course. Like I said, I think it's going to be Omega and Kid Buu. Fingers crossed it is 2 of them. I think it's high time we get them too, because I feel like they've been disrespected for so long, to be quite honest, in terms of getting new units. But we'll see, of course, we shall see. But yeah, let me know in the comment section how are you guys finding the 8th anniversary so far, and of course let us know what you guys are looking forward to the most in part 2. It's been Gilride. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the content on 5-9 Mobile. Remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take it easy, everybody. Bye bye.